let's get right into the news. Activision Blizzard. Now, I want to remind everybody that I have done many streams about Activision Blizzard. In fact, I was recently talking to someone that remarked to me, they said, if it wasn't for you and maybe one or two others, I would have no idea that Activision Blizzard had done anything wrong, ever. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's weird that. It's almost as if the games media does have some sort of fundamental problem when it comes to reporting on the big boys, don't they? They always find a way to qualify it or avoid it. And yeah, listen, this story is pretty insane because what I said at the time that all of the Activision Blizzard lawsuits started coming in, and just to remind you, these were lawsuits for systemic sexism, sexual harassment, HR covering up complaints, or maybe intimidating people that made these complaints. It's a fucking night. It's a sewer. It's unbelievable. It's stories about the now infamous Bill Cosby suite, or as it was called in the original lawsuit, the Crosby suite, where women were encouraged, if not pressured, to drink, were brought up to this hotel room for the purposes of people attempting to seduce them while they were under the influence, cubicle crawls where women were made to demean themselves. Oh yeah, and of course, who can forget the Activision Blizzard employee that put cameras in the women's toilets? It is awful. It's a really awful story, and it goes to some particularly dark places. Like, for example, a woman that worked for the company that had a lot of issues around this type of thing, this type of harassment, who tragically went on to commit suicide. So this story, for me, by the way, certainly the biggest of the year, that Activision Blizzard are now being pressured to face some sort of punitive measures at the very least. But also, they are just an awful company. They are anti-consumer, anti their own customers, anti their own staff on the ground. Never forget, this is the company that announced record profits, record turnover, I should say, while also announcing record layoffs. This is the company that fired people from their jobs on the basis they were no longer required, then advertised those same jobs at a reduced salary, something that they've also been taken to court for. They are absolute trash, and they have always been trash. Their management thinks about only one thing, and that is the holy share price for all the investors. And by the way, if you think the investors and the shareholders are in any way happy with what's been going on at Blizzard, you can go and dig into it yourself. People have tried to sue Bobby Kotick and Activision Blizzard for negligence in their fiduciary duty to the shareholders. Like, for example, when they just cut all of the Bungie portfolio, lowering their share price, and knew it was coming and didn't tell anyone, didn't tell the shareholders, and in the previous shareholder call had obfuscated the fact it was coming down the pipe and basically said, yeah, everything's going to be fine, it's going to be great, Destiny's going to be doing really well, and blah, blah. This company is ass. It's ass, and it's run by one of the biggest asses of all time in the gaming industry, the king of greed, the Goblin King, Bobby Kotick. Bobby Kotick is someone that it's staggering to me. If you ever want to see how these fucking CEOs of successful companies can just ride and have more lives than the average cat, Bobby Kotick's your man. He's been embroiled in all sorts of shit. You know, he's just not a good dude in any way, shape, or form. And I know he was in Moneyball. I know he did do a good cameo in Moneyball, but that I can't forget. That doesn't absolve him of all of his sins. He's an arsehole. Such an arsehole. A classic business arsehole. And the reality is, you know, I said at the time when all these stories were coming down the pipe and Bobby Kotick was going, well, I just had no idea. 16 separate instances of harassment. Right, let me tell you a thing or two about these high-powered CEOs. They are not like you or I. Not necessarily because they're exceptional or they're talented or they're way more intelligent. No, I mean, that is true in some cases. Some of these people are fucking bona fide geniuses, right? But what they are is they are driven beyond what we would consider normal human limits to succeed. Their internal monologue has a very different relationship with success and failure than we do. They have a tendency to have traits that actually are in line with psychopathy, which is why there's, I think, a famous essay, I can't remember who wrote it, but sort of saying the corporation as it works in America is sort of the business manifestation of psychopathy. And so what you will find that a lot of these people have in common is they view humans as assets to be leveraged. You do the thing I want like an automaton, like a machine, and if you fucking don't, I cut you loose because you have failed. And there's no human aspect to this. I view you as a device. And the other thing is they are obsessive, fastidiously so. They know every facet of business. If you've ever read about Steve Jobs, again, one of the most overrated arseholes in American business, the reality is if you've read about Steve Jobs, he knew you could ask him any question about any facet of his business and he would know. And so the idea that Bobby Kotick, king of the shareholders, the man who essentially had, a job for life at Activision Blizzard, the idea that he wouldn't know that there'd been harassment allegations from women in management, that HR had dealt with it a certain way, that there was something not quite right with the culture. The idea he wouldn't know was always risible. It was always ridiculous. I said as much. And I said, by the way, irrespective of that fact, he would still have to be the one to fall on his sword. Because what is a hierarchical structure if the people at the top are not accountable for the things below them? And instead, what did they do? They went all around the houses. You had, J. Allen Brack, who was like, well, in my house, we had feminist heroes. No, not enough. Not going to save your job, my friend. Away you go. You're sent. They threw everyone they could under the boat. The head of HR's gone. Our head of legal's gone. The head of legal actually just fucking pieced out, seeing what the fucking nightmare ahead of them was. And we've the woman that used to work for George W. Bush on their Iraqi strategy, brilliant. Yeah, we've told her to stop tweeting for a little bit and we'll review that internally. But at the end of the day, all of the people are taking their cues from fucking shareholder Jesus, the Goblin King. So why doesn't he have to leave? He never does. Now, one of the things that got caught up in the in-between times of me talking about Activision Blizzard, deciding I was going to do a major, prepping for the major, doing the major, losing my mind at the major, coming back, trying to recover my sanity after the major, and now doing this stream today. One of the things that happened was Bobby Kotick took a 99.6% pay cut, right? So I'll bring pretty, because he just wants to keep that high-powered job. And obviously, it comes with a caveat, right? Because it always does. What he thought would save him was if he said, listen, I'll take a 99.6% pay cut until the company improves. And in other words, he was getting the California minimum salary of $62,500. And you go, holy shit, that's crazy. But as you can see here, Kotick has said he will only accept California's legal minimum salary of $62,500 and will not take any other bonuses or compensation. However, it's worth remembering the CEO already earned $155 million from the company via a bonus that had been awarded in the year. Well, how will Bobby Kotick eat? Won't somebody think of the poor Koticks right now? See a strong uptake for, wow, $62,500. That's a lot of money. I agree. Also, $62,500 in California Oh, go find out, especially under the Biden inflation, which, by the way, that's a good thing that that's happening and will help us meet our clean, renewable energy goals moving forward. Keep pumping that $4 gas, homies. Everything's better now. This is what you voted for. Anyway, also coming soon to an episode of Enemy of the People. In a lengthy letter to staff, Kotick today outlined progress and commitments made at Activision Blizzard, with 5 new changes announced today. Most notable is the agreement to drop forced arbitration of future sexual harassment cases, something that was requested by many employees during the walkout. The first change, detailed, is a new zero-tolerance harassment policy company-wide, which means tougher rules and consistent monitoring across the entire company and the strictest harassment and non-retaliation policies of any employer. Any Activision Blizzard employee found through our new investigative process and resources to have retaliated against anyone for making a compliance complaint will be terminated immediately. And this again relates directly to what happened. People made a complaint. HR said, "Here, mate, this woman's complaining about you." And then the person who was being complained about went and told all of the other people, "Yeah, let's fuck with that person for complaining about me. How dare they?" That was the type of shit that was going on. Your complaints weren't even being honoured as being, anonymous. Crazy. Anyway, in many other instances of workplace misconduct, we will no longer rely on written warnings. Termination will be the outcome, including in most cases of harassment based on any legally protected category. Second, Kotick pledged to increase the percentage of women and non-binary people in the company by 50% over the next 5 years and invest $250 million. That's $100 million more than he got in a one yearly bonus to accelerate opportunities for diverse talent. Kotick said the company currently employs 23% women or non-binary. Each franchise team, business unit, and functional area will be expected to have plans to help fulfill this ambition. Third, as mentioned, the company will now waive arbitration of sexual harassment and discrimination claims. And for those who, are new to this type of stream and these types of topics, forced arbitration is when your contract says, if we do something bad that you could sue us for, you can't go and get your own private lawyer that would take us to the cleaners. You have to go to this arbitration committee body over here, and they heavily favor employers because that's how they get paid. And also, crucially, it means it is all resolved in private and there will be no public record of the atrocities perpetrated against you, the worker. I know about this shit back when I used to be a trade union representative. We used to go up against the arbitrators all the time, in particular one called ACAS. Forced arbitration, never take it, never accept it. Don't take arbitration ever. Always lawyer up if you can. Get a union rep if you can. Get anyone, the motherfuckers that make their bread and butter by basically doing low settlements in private to just make the headache go away for the employers. Fuck arbitration. Fourth, the company will continue to increase visibility on pay equity, a topic where Kotick noted women at the company on average earned slightly more than men for comparable work in 2020, according to him. A report, by the way, came out that immediately contradicted that, but whatever. And fifth, the company will monitor progress and update staff and shareholders regularly on gender and diversity hiring and overall progress in improving its workplace culture. Now, none of that, by the way, has stopped this terminal decline that Activision Blizzard are facing, and their share price is fucking cratering. In fact, shall we have a look at a funny graph? Why don't we have a look at a funny graph? We love funny graphs. Right, there's the funny graph. Right, now keep in mind, I can make the graph funnier, right? And if memory serves me correctly, even funnier. So, it's they have absolutely shit the bed. Like, you have to understand. People were remarking as the share price earlier in the year went up to like close to $100. Everyone was remarking, how does Bobby Kotick do it? How does Bobby Kotick do it? How does this genius motherfucker do it? Because we all know the truth. We all know Activision Blizzard make inferior fucking products to what they used to. We all remember fucking Warcraft 3 fucking that disaster. The remastering of that. We all know Call of Duty is fucking whack every year that it comes out. The same old tired shit. We know World of Warcraft content has gone to fucking absolute dog shit. Everything's been delayed. I mean, there was no content for Overwatch anyway. It's why I don't even hate Overwatch fans being deviant and obsessed with feet. What else do you have? You know, if it wasn't for the porn around there's no content. It's fine, actually. It's fine that you're all out there licking toes or whatever you guys do. Not even real toes, I imagine. So anyway... everyone was remarking like he's a genius. He's like the share price whisperer. But this guy now, turns out he's a fucking toxic asset to the company. And what could happen? Well, here's what happened. Let me tell you how we get to this point. The point where the share price whisperer is now one of the most despised people at the company. And some people are like, yep, it's probably the time for him to go. Wall Street Journal. Can I just say, by the way, the Wall Street Journal coming out of nowhere and dropping stories, sure, one of which is an absolute fucking plant, the Facebook papers, but still a vitally important story for the future of American tech, even though I feel their reporting is going to get used to do something horrible. And out of nowhere, they dropped this story about good old beleaguered Bobby. Won't someone think of Bobby Kotick? Here it is. The headline for this article. Activision CEO Bobby Kotick knew for years about sexual misconduct allegations at video game giant. Then the subheading, I should say, top executive didn't inform board of some reports, including alleged rapes. Company faces multiple regulatory investigations. Well, immediately, that's about as bad as it can be, right? You can't obscure that shit from the board. You know why? Because that will affect your share price. Naughty, Bobby. Very, very naughty indeed. It's 9 o'clock. I earned it. A lawyer for a former employee at Sledgehammer Games, an Activision-owned studio, alleged in an email obtained by the Wall Street Journal that her client had been raped in 2016 and 2017 by her male supervisor at Blizzard after she had been pressured to consume too much alcohol in the office and at work events. The female employee reported the incidents to Sledgehammer's Human Resources Department and other supervisors, but nothing happened, according to the email, which threatened a lawsuit against the company. Within months, fast-acting Blizzard, within months of receiving the email, said people familiar with the situation, Activision reached an out-of-court settlement with the woman, who also had reported one of the incidents to the police. Mr. Kotick didn't inform the company's board of directors about the alleged rapes or the settlement, said people with knowledge of the board dealings. So, immediately, this is terrible for a number of reasons. We'll go back to Big Head, right? It's terrible for a number of reasons. First of all, what's happened there is absolutely awful, because we're talking about two instances. This is a human being that has had a terrible violation occur to them on two occasions. And obviously after the first, they've continued working there for a substantial amount of time. No one's took the complaint seriously. Then it's happened again. The person responsible hasn't been held accountable, prosecuted in any sort of conceivable sense. And then eventually, when the company's been made aware of the inconvenient fact that employees are raping other employees at their company, how do they decide to handle it? They write the check and they make it go away. And there was no public clamour for change. Just let's all keep a lid on this. And, put it this way, at that point, If I'm running a company and I hear that any of my employees have been subject to any, it's something even a fraction as gruesome as that, there's going to be an investigation. You've got to look at the culture at that point. You've got to start turning over the stones. You've got to start asking the difficult questions. You certainly have to suspend that motherfucker, bare minimum. And you need to start putting protections in place. You need to start looking at the failings that enable this to happen. You need to start implementing realistic changes to improve your workplace environment. None of that occurred. And not only that, we now know, of course, that Bobby Kotick, who's been like, well, oh my me, what a surprise this all was to me, Bobby Kotick, man who definitely did not know about every fucking thing that goes on at the company I rule over. We now know he's full of shit. I mean, we knew he was full of shit, but we now know he was full of shit. Naturally, there has to be a response to this. I'll just take you through the rest. It says here, Activision has been thrown into turmoil in recent months, as we know, by multiple regulatory investigations into alleged sexual assaults and mistreatment of female employees dating back years. Mr. Kotick has told directors and other executives he wasn't aware of many of the allegations of misconduct and has played down others, according to people familiar with the matter in the internal documents. And so we come back to Big Head. Right, why is this a problem? Listen, you can't materially misrepresent things that are going to affect share price to your shareholders. This is a big financial no. Now, obviously, there's a lot of interpretation that can be done. We can go back and forth. If you can, legitimately argue, maybe he didn't have an awareness. You have to have sort of the fact that he actually meant to do it. But this is one of the problems that he's faced before. Like, as I said, with the Bungie thing. You tell the shareholders, no, listen, it's fine. It's fine. But, maybe just don't look too hard. But it's fine. It's not going to affect the share price. Nothing to worry about here. I've looked into it. So at that point, you are lying to people that you actually need to protect, because your decisions and your perception, the things you do, will affect share price. And I just showed you the graph, right? The negative headlines have absolutely crippled Activision Blizzard. It's almost half their share price in a few months, So it's a big deal. And so you've got to be straight with your shareholders, and also all the financial laws around being a publicly traded company. It's all got to be transparent. You can't lie to your shareholders. It's just it's a known rule. So that is obviously problematic for that reason. I mean, even if you were just a cold-blooded reptile and you didn't care about the human element to this, and you were just like, well, all money and profit is good, greed is good. If you were Gordon motherfucking Gecko, by the way, one of the most on-the-nose names ever in a movie, but if you were Gordon Gecko, that cold-blooded reptile, then he's still breaking all the rules, this motherfucker, Those documents include memos, emails, and regulatory requests, and interviews with former employees and others familiar with the company. However, cast Mr. Kotick's response in a different light. They show that he knew about the allegations of employee misconduct in many parts of the company. He didn't inform the board about everything he knew. The interviews and documents show, even after regulators began investigating the incidents in 2018. Some departing employees who were accused of misconduct were praised on their way out, while their co-workers were asked to remain silent about the matters. Now, there was a separate thing, because, trust me, this is another, never fuck with the American government. Never do that. And Activision Blizzard, obviously, they got on the government radar when they pissed them off around this China business, right? And they basically were like, everyone took their, I would never call out China publicly, but if someone else fails to do so, if someone else kowtows to China, then yeah, we'll chew them up for it. And if you remember around the Blitzchung thing, which again I also reported extensively, when Activision Blizzard basically banned someone expressing support for Hong Kong, which, as we all know, just turned out China just got to do whatever the fuck they want there too. They banned him from tournaments, and they were going, oh, it's nothing to do with it being China. It's just we don't allow political content to enter into our tournament sphere. And then, of course, when J. Allen Brack did that terrible apology, he never uttered the word Hong Kong, he never uttered the word China, he never uttered the word politics. What he did utter was, we have let you down in our failure to bring you epic moments. But it just turns out, in the age of slacktivism, no one gives a shit. Even the American government were fucking posing and posturing with that bullshit. And they wrote a letter of concern, didn't they? Which, by the way, was signed by senators from both parties. They said, listen, you shouldn't be behaving like this, and maybe we'll have to look at it. Now, it might not be linked, but it is mental, by the way, that they have been absolutely wrecked by everyone all at once. I think I said it on the Four Horsemen podcast we did, talking about Reginald. It's kind of a microcosm of what happens writ large, in esports. We know who the monsters are. We know who the tyrants are. We let them act with impunity. And no, everyone's too afraid to call them out. And meanwhile, someone with bad tweets gets absolutely abused by every fucking corner of the industry, right? And then eventually they fuck up so bad, everyone comes out and gives them the Julius Caesar treatment. And they're lying there going, et tu, Brute. And you're going, listen, we weren't even friends to begin with. I always thought you were a cunt. And so lo and behold, it's happened to Activision Blizzard, hasn't it? So they've got the SEC up their arse as well as everything else, right? You can see here, Mr. Kotick has been subpoenaed. Oh. Enjoy the depositions, friends. He's been subpoenaed in a Securities and Exchange Commission investigation into how the company handled reports of misconduct and disclosed them to the public. The Wall Street Journal reported this in September. What Mr. Kotick knew about the alleged incidents and what he told other employees, the board of directors and investors, will be part of that probe. And in addition to this, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing has filed a lawsuit back in July, alleging the company ignored numerous complaints by female employees of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation, citing what it called its frat boy culture in response. And by the way, as I made the joke at the time, and it's not even really a joke, it sort of holds true, don't say frat boy culture, because it ain't. It's very much Activision Blizzard culture. Most frats would be appalled at how Activision Blizzard operate. That's really all you need to know. I say most, almost all of them, but not all of them. Anyway, so they're facing all of this shit. See here, it talks about what we just showed you, how he was taking minimum wage and how they made a woman, the first woman to lead one of the company's business units and all of that stuff. So we get to the next part, right? The reaction. Now, one of the things Activision Blizzard have been rightfully accused of the entire time is the tone deaf. The tone-deaf response. Remember, when this first happened, they tried to stand up and fight it, and they were like saying, "Oh, it's not as bad as it makes out. You know what the media are like. Bloody hell." They really pushed back, and tone-deaf is a nice way of saying, your strategy failed. They put an official statement out, right, first. So this is their press release. Santa Monica, California. Activision Blizzard issued the following statement today. We are disappointed in the Wall Street Journal's report, which presents a misleading view of Activision Blizzard and our CEO. They dropped the word glorious from the original draft. Instances of sexual misconduct that were brought to his attention were acted upon. The Wall Street Journal ignores important changes underway to make this the industry's most welcoming and inclusive workplace. I just showed you that they haven't ignored that and actually explicitly mentioned that at the end of the article. It fails to account for the efforts of thousands of employees who work hard every day to live up to their and our values. Irrelevant to the story, Activision Blizzard. The constant desire to be better has always set this company apart. Which is why, at Mr. Kotick's direction, we have made significant improvements, including a zero-tolerance policy for inappropriate conduct. And it is why we are moving forward with unwavering focus, speed, and resources to continue increasing diversity across our company and industry, and to ensure that every employee comes to work feeling valued, safe, respected, and inspired. We will not stop until we have the best workplace for our team. that statement may as well just be, yeah, well, yeah, he did lie to the shareholders. All the stuff, they just didn't address any of it. They just said, yeah, we sort of did do the thing. I don't know why I'm talking like Bill Cosby, appropriate, I suppose. But won't you think of our employees? It's a story about Bobby motherfucking Kotick, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in America. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't give a fuck. It's got nothing to do with the thousands of fucking underlings. It's about him. Ridiculous. So that was their initial response, right? I mean, because, these companies are so fucking out of touch with reality. It's pretty mental. Then you can imagine what comes next, because there's blood in the water, guys. There really is. Metaphorical blood, of course, in a video game, of course. I'm using a metaphor about sharks, aren't I? It's totally safe to say that on Twitch. So there's a petition, and listen, I'm not one for petitions. I think petitions are a motherfucking waste of time. I don't think anything significant in human history has ever changed because of a petition. But, the employees, over 1,000 now, have said Bobby Kotick must be removed. And we're going to be doing walkouts and fucking with your shit till that happens. So over 1,000 employees and contractors at Activision Blizzard have now signed and published a petition to remove CEO Bobby Kotick from the company, doubling the number of signatures since the petition was made public. The petition says, we, the undersigned, I always love it when it's that, right? Very formal, no longer have confidence in the leadership of Bobby Kotick. He's not Mr. Kotick to them, which is good. Bobby it is. As the CEO of Activision Blizzard, the information that has come to light about his behaviors and practices in the running of our companies runs counter to the culture and integrity we require of our leadership and directly conflicts with the initiatives started by our peers. We ask that Bobby Kotick remove himself as CEO of Activision Blizzard and that shareholders be allowed to select the new CEO without the input of Bobby, who we are aware owns a substantial portion of the voting rights of the shareholders. Now, this is a very complex and tricky issue, and I don't know the fucking legal particulars. My understanding always is, because he owns so many shares, it would take an overwhelming, but not a controlling amount, it would take an overwhelming amount of other board members that also own those shares to essentially vote him off the board and legally compel him to sell those shares. That's my understanding from watching American TV, but American TV probably isn't the best place to learn about this, so take that with a pinch of salt. Maybe I'm completely fucking wrong, but that's my understanding of it. Anyway, in a surprising move, and this is how you know, by the way, the wind of change is blowing, the petition lists names, titles, and departments of the workers. Everyone feels so comfortable sticking the old Caesar-esque shiv into Bobby Kotick now. He's so toxic. They're like, there's not even going to be any reprisals for saying he's a cunt that needs to be removed. And lo and behold, everybody's names and departments and rank and all of that is there. And what's interesting, I will say, I'm very surprised no one's done this. I'd like to see which senior managers have put their name to that, because those people have the strongest backbones of all, right? Blah, 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 petition, blah, 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 comes after the reporting, blah, blah, blah. So, internal pressure on Activision Blizzard to remove Bobby Kotick. But that's probably not going to do a whole lot of much, is it? Right? What is going to create meaningful change, as always, is when your business partners, when your by business partners, I mean strategic business partners, like people. Remember, if you make games, I need to sell them. And therefore, if they're not on certain platforms and I can't sell them on those platforms, I lose money, I lose share price. These are the things Activision Blizzard cares about. So what a strange situation I woke up to on the morning of this report. And that was that PlayStation chief criticizes Activision's response to crisis. The Sony Group Corporation PlayStation chief Jim Ryan admonished Activision Blizzard Wednesday for an inadequate response to allegations that CEO Bobby Kotick was aware of sexual misconduct and harassment claims at the game's publisher for years. In an email to employees reviewed by Bloomberg, Ryan linked to the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday's report and he said that him and his leadership were disheartened and frankly stunned to read that Activision has not done enough to address a deep-seated culture of discrimination and harassment. We outreached to Activision immediately after this article was published to express our deep concern and to ask how they plan to address the claims made in the article. We do not believe their statement of response properly addresses the situation. So imagine a world where me and PlayStation chief Jim Ryan, who works for Sony, we're in total agreement. I never thought I would see that day. That's worth a drink. Here's to you, Jim Ryan. You're probably a massive piece of shit. I'll probably be doing a stream about you in 2 years. But for now, we are allies. Excellent. As one of the video game's biggest console manufacturers, Sony has long had a close relationship with Activision, which produces hits like Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. In addition to publishing most of its games on PlayStation consoles, Activision has worked with Sony on elaborate marketing deals. The last few entries in the Call of Duty series, including this year's Call of Duty Vanguard, which is garbage, have featured exclusive modes and content for the PlayStation. So, while there are no specific actions listed as to what they are going to do, this is a big deal. This is not dollars or cents. This isn't 1,000 signatures on a piece of paper. This is potentially tens, hundreds of millions of dollars on the line if they can't win PlayStation round to being able to do business with them in good conscience. Now, I'll add, because I'm a cynical ass motherfucker and I hate corporations and not a fan of Sony, spoiler, although I did buy a PS5 from a scalper for no reason, but you know, come on, whatever. What I'll add is, I think this is an opportunity for, first of all, Sony doing the old, haha, look at this company over here. Da, 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 da. Also an opportunity to leverage some strength over them. And also, I would imagine Bobby Kotick's a fucking asshole to do dealings with, and getting him out of the equation mightn't be the worst thing in the fucking world for their side of the business. So I'm a cynical motherfucker. That's all pure speculation. But what I will say is, the fact that they would even comment on it in this landscape, in the current climate, is fucking unreal. It's so unprecedented for a big CEO or a chief or whatever, a president of a fucking company, who come out when another one is under the cosh and go, yeah, actually, that you're handling that like dog shit. They always look after their own. Not this time. And it wasn't even just PlayStation, right? It wasn't even just them. The Xbox, remember Xbox? Do you remember the Xboxes, kids? Remember those? We all had one, didn't we? The Xbox chief, Phil Spencer, also waded in, and I'm pausing that. Xbox chief says he's evaluating the relationship. He went one further. Console wars never fucking end, did he? Like Sony are there. PlayStation are disheartened. Shit, what can Xbox do to one-up them? I mean, you know, get better games maybe, but fuck that. What we'll do to one-up them is we'll go, we're evaluating our relationship. We're evaluating it. Now, listen, I don't know what evaluation actually is. Like here, this is evaluation. Right, that's evaluation. It's not as strong a word as you actually fucking think it is. But still, in business terms, it carries a weight. It carries a context. Let's read the report. Microsoft Corporation's head of Xbox says he's evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard and making ongoing proactive adjustments in light of the recent revelations at the video game publisher. In an email to staff seen by Bloomberg News, they've seen it, obviously. Phil Spencer said he and the gaming leadership team are disturbed and deeply troubled by the horrific events and actions at Activision Blizzard Incorporated. He referred to the Wall Street Journal story earlier this week that said CEO Bobby Kotick knew of sexual harassment at the company for years and that he mistreated women. This type of behaviour has no place in our industry, Spencer wrote. He joins a swell of outcry from employees to investors and shareholders in demanding a stronger response from the US's second biggest gaming publisher. On Wednesday, Sony Group Corporation PlayStation chief Jim Ryan sent a similar note to staff, writing that he and his leadership were disheartened and frankly stunned to read that Activision has not done enough to address a deep-seated culture of discrimination and harassment. Activision responded to old Philly S wading in. We respect all feedback. Oh, imagine this is like the shit sandwich, like when you've got to the middle, like, oh god. We respect all feedback from our valued partners and are engaging with them further. We have detailed important changes we have implemented in recent weeks, and we will continue to do so. We are committed to the work of ensuring our culture and workplace to be safe, diverse, and inclusive. We know it will take time, but we will not stop until we have the best workplace for our team. Brilliant. Repeating pretty much the same thing they say all of the fucking time. Empty words. Now, that brings you up to speed. Beleaguered Bobby Kotick. You can now use that adjective to describe him. It's a very, very tough time. I have got to say that there's a very strong chance I see something I never thought I would see in my lifetime. Well, first of all, a big CEO actually being held accountable by the little people. That would be something. But just on a more specific level, Bobby Kotick out of Activision Blizzard. You know, it would be like a dream. It would be like a dream. Let me just remind you as well. Let me take you back. Let me take you back to a different time. Let me take you back to 2010 and just remind you, just one of the many stories about who Bobby Kotick is. Here it is. This is the 2010. And again, obviously, I'm a boomer, right? I've been around a while. I remember all of the stories. Activision. This was the story about Bobby Kotick losing a legal battle with a former lawyer, which relating to things that went on in a private jet. So here you go. Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick had lost a long-running legal battle with his former lawyer over fees incurred while battling a lawsuit from a former flight attendant who worked on his private jet. Kotick is reviewing his options. Yes, review them. Following an arbitrator's ruling that he pays a whopping $1.4 million to his old law firm. The dispute stemmed from a January 2007 lawsuit brought by flight attendant Cynthia Madvig against Kotick, Andrew Gordon of Goldman Sachs, Cove Management, the company the pair created to manage their co-owned Gulfstream 3 private jet, and the pilot Phil Berg. Madvig alleged sexual harassment and wrongful termination. She allegedly refused to be Berg's arm candy, quote, at dinners and other events. The lawsuit said that Berg compelled her to clean the plane's toilets while repeatedly leering at her. She claimed that after complaining, she was fired by Bobby Kotick, who allegedly told her the guys are unhappy with this hostile environment. People forget these things. People just forget these things. If you're big enough, you can get away with it every single solitary fucking time. You know, that's 10 years ago. 11 now. God, we're all so old. We've all come so far. And this guy, there was no clamour back then. We didn't do things like this back then. Dare I say it, had he been removed as CEO back then for that, people would have gone, oh, bit much, isn't it? Now that we know he's lied to his shareholders, now that we know that he's essentially played down actual heinous crimes as bad as rape, surely there's nowhere for this guy to go now. Surely there is nowhere for this guy to go. And yes, I am aware, chat. I am looking over at you now. When I look this way, I'm looking at you. Yes, I'm aware. Yes, his name was in Mr. Epstein's black book, wasn't it? That we saw, if you remember, when the address book of Epstein, that man who committed suicide, you might have heard of him. Yes, Bobby Kotick was in that. But listen, It's outrageous to imply anything beyond just that simple fact, which I'm certainly not. But you can Google that. Maybe don't. But you can. And it's a genuine thing that really happened. So, you know, you can check it out. And so, as you can imagine, this won't come as a surprise or a shock, but it is where the story will end. Activision Blizzard is no longer the most valuable gaming company in the US. Roblox. Roblox has overtaken Activision Blizzard, at least on the stock market. Oh, fuck. Activision Blizzard no longer holds the distinction of the most valuable US gaming company. Roblox, the company behind the hugely popular sandbox game of the same name, has surpassed Activision Blizzard thanks to an incredible recent surge in its stock price. And also, let's be real, I know you don't want to say it, GameSpot, I think Activision Blizzard's share price absolutely fucking tanking as Bobby Kotick continues to shit the bed. Probably has something to do with it. Shares of Roblox jumped by more than 40,000 on Tuesday after the company's earnings report, catapulting the firm's market cap beyond 62 billion. This compares to Activision Blizzard's market cap of around 52 billion, according to the Wall Street Journal. Outside of those two companies, EA has a market cap of around 39.7 billion. God, isn't everything in the games industry awful? Roblox breaking up the big two of AB and EA. Sag.